What's up everyone and welcome back to the World History Channel. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button today. Let's get started. 15 bizarre and surprisingly brutal stories you never knew about King Arthur. When you think of stories about King Arthur, a few things come to mind: the Knights of the Round Table, chivalry, and the adulterous Queen Guinevere cheating on Arthur with his best friend Sir Lancelot. However, Arthurian legends encompass a great deal more than a single scandalous incident and a circular table. The stories about the Knights of the Round Table include the lecherous exploits of Arthur's favorite nephew, Sir Gawain, the humble kitchen servant origins of his brother, Sir Gareth, Guinevere's family and food troubles, hunting magical enemies ranging from warriors to boars, and so much more. Oh, and then there are Arthur's own scandals with his sibling and his sorceress sister's 99 problems. Arthurian legend is definitely anything but the dull stuff of medieval legend. Sir Gawain lies his way to losing his head with the Green Knight. At King Arthur's court, it is Christmas, and the royals are all gathering around the round table when, all of a sudden, a huge knight with green skin walks into the great hall. For totally inexplicable reasons, he offers up the chance for one knight to give him an axe blow to the neck in exchange for the same treatment being given to the knight 1 year and a day later. Arthur's nephew Gawain accepts the challenge, removing the head of the Green Knight, who then promises to meet Gawain in a year's time. In the year that follows, Gawain sets off to find the knight at his green chapel, hoping to reach some sort of compromise. On the way, he gets involved in all kinds of trials and tribulations and ends up playing a kissing game with a lovely woman whose husband he has promised to give any gifts he receives from her. Gawain doesn't do this, however, and he keeps a magical girdle that she gives him for his quest. Whatever, Gawain has bigger fish to fry than husband-wife dishonesty. When he finally makes it to the Green Knight, Gawain flinches at the prospect of having his head cut off, and the knight only breaks the skin. He doesn't chop all the way through. Turns out, though, he's the husband of the lady Gawain kissed. The almost beheading was punishment for not fulfilling his bargain of giving him the girdle. Embarrassed, Gawain wears the girdle forevermore as a sign of his failings and desire to seek honor. Arthur is conceived through deception and rape. In his origin story, Arthur is born as the result of deception, magic, and rape. His father, Uther, is High King of the Britons but doesn't have a wife, having fallen deeply in love with the spouse of one of his vassals. She is the lovely Igraine, Duchess of Cornwall, reputed to be the most beautiful woman in all of the land. At court, when her husband Gorlois sees Uther eyeing up Igraine, he takes her home, and Uther gets furious. Uther then rises up against Cornwall, besieging Gorlois in one castle, while Igraine gets shut up for safety in the seaside fortress of Tintagel. However, regardless of the conflict he's involved in, Uther insists on making Igraine his own, so he convinces the magician prophet Merlin to help him. Merlin transforms Uther into Gorlois so he can enter Tintagel. Thinking that he's her husband, Igraine has intercourse with Uther, with no one the wiser. In that one deceptive night, Arthur is conceived. His armies engaged Gorloises while Uther was attacking Igraine, killing Uther's rival. In the morning, Uther goes out again, assumes his regular guise, and then weds newly widowed Igraine, by then pregnant with his child. Arthur attempts to slay the love child he shares with his sister. After marrying Uther, Igraine has a few problems, namely, her 2 daughters by Gorlois, Morgause and Morgan, later nicknamed Le Fay for her otherworldly abilities. The exact number and names of these girls vary depending on the storyteller, but these are the 2 most recognized half-sisters of Arthur. Since he is raised in the home of a devoted knight, they never really get to know their little brother. So, when Arthur meets his half-sister Morgause or Morgan, depending on the story, he doesn't realize who she is and has an affair with her. As Thomas Malory, one of the most famous Arthurian chroniclers, writes, he begot upon her Mordred, and she was his sister on his mother's side, Igraine. This incestuous tale takes an even darker turn when Arthur learns that Morgause had his baby, and he pulls a King Herod, ordering all babies born on May Day in Britain to be slain. Unfortunately for him, his son-nephew, Mordred, survives and his subjects end up really hating him for slaying a lot of innocent babies. As an adult, Mordred seduces his aunt's stepmother, Guinevere. This is seen as super shameful on Guinevere's part. She'd already betrayed Arthur with Lancelot, his friend, before going off with his own son. Twin brothers accidentally slay each other. When a lady wearing a sword shows up at Arthur's court, everyone is stunned. As with many of the craziest stories of Arthurian legend, she also issues a challenge upon her arrival: let the knight who is without blemish draw the sword from its scabbard. Many knights try and fail at the task. That is, until a poor, shabbily dressed knight named Balin amazes everyone with his success. After he draws the sword, however, he doesn't want to give it back. The lady warns him, though, that if he keeps it, he'll slay the person he loves. But then the Lady of the Lake shows up, demanding either the swordswoman's demise or Balin's. Quick-thinking Balin solves the problem by slaying the swordswoman. Later banished, Balin winds up wounding the eventual Fisher King in a fight that's an important moment for the Grail quest, FYI. But his most awful moment really comes when he decides to challenge a stranger knight, actually his brother Balin, who's wearing armor he's never seen before. The two knights slay one another in combat, but not before each realizes the one he's slain is his sibling. A knight and a lion become BFFs. Sir Iwain is one of Arthur's greatest knights, and like most of Arthur's favorites, his life isn't exactly a charmed one. Iwain is most well known for the series of adventures and misadventures that lead to him going insane and roaming a forest like a wild beast until he's befriended by a hermit and a nice lady who restore his sanity. Once he's sane again, Iwain sees a dragon fighting a lion, and he makes the game-time decision to be on Team Lion, saving the big cat's life. Thereafter, Iwain and the lion become BFFs, and Iwain calls himself the Knight of the Lion. When his wife is in trouble and wishes for the famed Knight of the Lion to help her, someone tells her that he'll only assist her if she pledges to help get him back together with his wife, which she of course does not, knowing all the while that the Knight of the Lion is actually her estranged husband, Iwain. When she realizes who Iwain really is, she's pissed, but they reconcile. Today Arthur is still alive, just sleeping. When Arthur is grievously wounded at his final fight at Camlan, his sister Morgan finally shows some compassion for her brother. According to legend, she transports a dying Arthur to the Isle of Avalon, where he does not die but continues to sleep to this day. Why? So he can return to save Britain when she needs him most. In another version of this story, Arthur dwells in a cave, most likely on Avalon, still conked out for thousands of years to come. This trope of a sleeping hero to be resurrected in a time of crisis is a common one in mythology. Sexual powerhouse Morgan Le Fay swipes Excalibur. Arthur's sorceress half-sister Morgan has numerous lovers, often making her threatening to knights in the romances, from the point of view of the male authors who write her, and is unapologetic about it. She pines for Lancelot and takes a lover named Accolon, son of her husband, Urien. Morgan hates her brother, mostly because his dad, Uther, slew her own father. So, she manipulates Accolon into fighting Arthur, seeking to slay and depose him in order to make the man she loves king. She even takes Arthur's famous sword, Excalibur, and his protective scabbard and gives them to Accolon. So when the two fight, Arthur doesn't have any magical aid, instead relying on fakes. Sadly, Accolon wounds Arthur, who doesn't perish but then passes from his own injuries. Every single one of Arthur and Guinevere's children perishes. Many Arthurian stories portray Guinevere as being barren, in stark contrast to Arthur's twisted romance with one of his sisters that produces Mordred. But not every version leaves the royal pair childless. However, any tales that do result in kids also result in the subsequent passings of those children. Welsh romances which differ from and predate most of the English, French, and German versions mention Arthur having sons named Aemar or Amhar, Lechu, and Gwaidra, presumably by Guinevere. Legend has it that Arthur accidentally slays Aemar. Lechu fights for his father, and poets remember his passing as being particularly bloody. One account has him slain by his dad's own foster brother, Sir Kay. And Gwaidra. He dies during a hunt for a magic boar, although mythographers think this Gwaidra might have been confused with another hero of the same name. Merlin falls in love with a hot young thing who ruins him. In his old age, Merlin falls in love with a beautiful young woman named Nimue, alternately Vivian, or a ton of other monikers. After all, He's the son of the devil, so lust is in his mind all the time, right? But Nimue is not only decades younger than Merlin, she's also his student. Depending on the medieval account you read, Nimue is genuinely in love with Merlin. She hates him, or he's plotting to take her virginity. In most versions, though, he teaches her magic, and then she sticks Merlin in a tomb or a cave for the rest of eternity. Again, her motives vary. He's a creepy predator she's trying to ward off, or she's evil and wants power herself. Guinevere's sister slaps her and starts a war. Guinevere isn't the only problem child in her family. Apparently, her sister, Gwenefach, also likes to cause some trouble. The Mabinogion relates that Guinevere is chief queen of Britain, and Gwenefach is her sister, but it's another Welsh account that tells the tale of an epic slap Gwenefach delivers to her royal sibling. This smack is one of the 3 sinister hard slaps of Britain, each of which causes lots of trouble in Welsh mythology. In this case, somehow Gwenefach's strike on Guinevere causes the Battle of Camlan, the final conflict between Arthur and his son-nephew Mordred, at which both men perish. Or, alternatively, at which one perishes and one falls asleep forever. There's really no explanation from how things escalate from a slap to a massive conflict, though. Guinevere hosts a feast that almost gets her executed. As Arthur's wife, Guinevere has to act as Camelot's hostess supreme, but that goes awry on one particular occasion. At one point, because she's pissed he took so long questing for the Holy Grail, she decides to banish her lover Lancelot. To show that she's an independent lady who doesn't need a man to be happy, she hosts a massive feast in his wake. At the feast, however, one of the invited knights eats some tainted food, usually an apple, and croaks. The Camelot powers that be accuse Guinevere of slaying him, and because no knight is willing to speak up for her innocence, they try to burn her at the stake. However, her champion Lancelot saves the day, and the Lady of the Lake uncovers the true culprit. Close call for Gwyn. Sir Gawaine's quest to find out what women want gets him an ugly wife. Arthur's nephew Sir Gawaine is no stranger to unfortunate quests. He is the one, after all, who has to spend a year searching for a massive green knight who wants to cut his head off. In addition to that series of unfortunate events, Gawaine goes on a quest to find out what women love the most after he's challenged to figure out one of life's most enduring mysteries. On the trip, Gawaine meets an ugly lady named Ragnell who says she'll give him the answer to his question if he marries her. He agrees, and she tells him that women most cherish power over men. Despite her appearance, Gawaine goes forward with the ceremony, and when he kisses his wife, she turns into a hottie. She asks him to decide if he wants her ugly by day and pretty by night or the other way around, and Gawaine lets her decide. In the end, Dame Ragnell winds up with everything she wanted, staying sexy all the time and getting the guy. Lancelot is almost seduced by a witch who likes her lover's deceased. On one of his journeys, Sir Lancelot meets a sorceress named Helos, who built a chapel housing a sword he has to retrieve. In exchange for the blade, she wants just one thing from him: a single lip lock. Lancelot says no, which turns out to be a pretty good idea. Had he kissed her, he would have kicked the bucket. Lancelot leaves Helos, who likes her lover's nice and deceased, pining away behind him. She perishes not long after of love for him. Arthur's nephew gets his start because of his really nice hands. It's clear that Arthur's family causes him no end of trouble. But once in a while his relatives are actually nice folks. Once upon a time, a handsome young man shows up at Camelot on a holy day, asking for 3 favors from Arthur. But he'll only name one food for a year. He doesn't utter his name, so he's given the nickname Beaumains, or beautiful hands in French, for his lovely hands, and is given work in the kitchens. A year later, a lovely lady named Lynette seeks help from a knight for her sister. Beaumains winds up getting a nice horse and rides off to assist her. She's annoyed that a dishwasher is dispatched for this emergency. But after earning his knighthood for fighting Arthur's foster brother, Beaumains reveals his name. He's Gawaine's little brother, Arthur's nephew, Gareth. He then goes to rescue Lynette's sister, Lyonesse, and falls head over armor for her. He has to serve her for a year before marrying her, but finally, after endless adventures, Lyonesse and Gareth wed, and Lynette ties the knot with his brother Gaheris. Arthur's cousin wins his wife by taking a magical razor from a boar. Welsh traditions that include King Arthur in their stories are quite a bit different from the more familiar French and British versions of the Arthur stories. Take the tale of Arthur's cousin Culhwch and Olwen. Cursed by his stepmother to marry a giant's daughter named Olwen, Culhwch has to undergo a seemingly endless number of tasks to win her. He even has to enlist the help of cousin Arthur and his court to get all the stuff done. One of these impossible tasks: tracking down a magical boar named Twh, who somehow wears a magical pair of scissors and a razor. With the assistance of Arthur, his knights, and a magician named Mabon, Culhwch manages this, along with a bunch of other unusual jobs, and wins Olwen, whom he ends up falling madly in love with. 15 Bizarre and surprisingly brutal stories you never knew about King Arthur. When most people think of King Arthur, they imagine noble knights, chivalry, and the tragic love triangle between Arthur, Guinevere, and Lancelot. But the legends surrounding the once and future king are far darker, stranger, and more brutal than popular culture suggests. From incest and baby massacres to beheading games and magical betrayals, Arthurian lore is packed with shocking tales that reveal a world of violence, deception, and supernatural horror. Here are 15 of the most bizarre and brutal stories from Arthurian legend that you probably never knew. 1. Sir Gawain lies his way into a beheading game. One of the most famous Arthurian tales, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, begins with a bizarre Christmas challenge. A gigantic green-skinned knight storms into Camelot and offers a deadly game. Any knight can strike him with an axe, but in return, the challenger must seek him out in a year and receive the same blow. Gawain, Arthur's nephew, accepts and decapitates the Green Knight, only for the knight to pick up his own head and remind Gawain of their deal. A year later, Gawain sets off to fulfill his promise, staying at a castle where the lord's wife repeatedly tries to seduce him. Despite his resistance, Gawain accepts the green magical girdle that she claims will protect him. When he finally meets the Green Knight, Gawain flinches at the axe swing, earning only a nick on his neck. The Green Knight reveals himself as the castle's lord, testing Gawain's honor. Since Gawain kept the girdle secret, he fails the test of absolute honesty. Humiliated, he wears the girdle forever as a mark of shame. 2. Arthur is conceived through deception and rape. Arthur's origin story is far from noble. His father, King Uther Pendragon, becomes obsessed with Igraine, the beautiful wife of his ally, Duke Gorlois of Cornwall. When Gorlois locks Igraine away in Tintagel Castle, Uther enlists Merlin's magic to disguise himself as Gorlois. Igraine, believing Uther is her husband, sleeps with him, unknowingly conceiving Arthur. Gorlois is killed in battle by Uther's forces that same night. After that, Uther weds the pregnant, widowed Igraine, making Arthur's birth the result of deceit, violence, and murder. 3. Arthur orders the massacre of babies to kill his own son. Years later, Arthur unknowingly commits incest with his half-sister Morgause, or Morgan Le Fay, depending on the version. She gives birth to Arthur's son and nephew, Mordred. Arthur orders the execution of all babies born on May Day after a prophecy states that a child born on that day will kill him. Mordred survives, hidden away, and grows up to betray Arthur, first by usurping his throne, then by seducing Guinevere. The baby massacre not only fails but also turns Arthur's people against him. 4. Twin brothers accidentally kill each other. In one tragic tale, a mysterious woman arrives at Camelot with a sword that only a flawless knight can draw. A poor knight named Balin succeeds but is warned that keeping the sword will lead him to kill someone he loves. Ignoring this, he beheads the Lady of the Lake when she demands the sword. Exiled, Balin later fights a disguised knight, only to realize too late that it's his own brother, Balin. They mortally wound each other, dying in each other's arms. 5. A knight and a lion become best friends. Sir Iwain, one of Arthur's greatest knights, goes mad after being abandoned by his wife. Roaming the wilderness like a beast, he's eventually healed by a hermit. Later, he saves a lion from a dragon, and the lion becomes his loyal companion. Iwain adopts the title Knight of the Lion, and when his estranged wife unknowingly begs him for help, he saves her, revealing his identity only after she promises to reconcile. 6. Arthur never died, he's just sleeping. After his final battle at Camlan, a mortally wounded Arthur is taken to the mystical Isle of Avalon by his sister Morgan Le Fay. Some legends say he never died. Instead, he sleeps in a hidden cave or on Avalon, waiting to return when Britain needs him most. This sleeping king legend has been around for centuries, and some people even say that Arthur will rise again during the darkest time in Britain. 7. Morgan Le Fay steals Excalibur to kill Arthur. Arthur's sorceress half-sister Morgan Le Fay despises him, blaming Uther for her father's death. In one story, she steals Excalibur and its protective scabbard, giving them to her lover, Accolon, so he can kill Arthur in battle. Arthur nearly dies fighting Accolon with a fake Excalibur but ultimately wins. Morgan later steals the scabbard again and throws it into a lake, ensuring Arthur can be mortally wounded in his final battle. 8. A knight gets trapped in a perpetual battle. King Pellinore is cursed to eternally chase the elusive questing beast, a monstrous creature with a serpent's head, leopard's body, and deer's feet. The beast's constant cries of "Here! Here!" torment Pellinore, forcing him into an endless hunt, until Arthur's knights finally kill it. 9. Guinevere is burned at the stake twice. After her affair with Lancelot is exposed, Guinevere is sentenced to burn at the stake. Lancelot rescues her, but in the process, he accidentally kills several of Arthur's knights, including Gawaine's brothers. This leads to Arthur's war against Lancelot, and ultimately Mordred's betrayal. In some versions, Guinevere is condemned again after Arthur's death, but is saved by Lancelot one last time before she becomes a nun. 10. A knight gets cursed to wear a snake around his neck. Sir Marhaus, an Irish knight, is cursed after killing a rival in combat. A dying enchantress places a living serpent around his neck, where it gnaws at his flesh until another knight removes it through a near-impossible feat of strength. 11. A lady turns into a dragon to protect her lover. In The Knight of the Cart, a sorceress transforms herself into a dragon to guard her sleeping lover from intruders. When Lancelot defeats her, she reverts to human form, revealing she was under a spell herself. 12. A knight is doomed to fight forever in the castle of the Copper Prison. Sir Garlon, an invisible knight, murders other knights until Balin tracks him down and beheads him. As punishment, Balin is trapped in the cursed castle of the Copper Prison, where he's forced to duel endlessly. 13. A knight gets his arm cut off, and it keeps fighting. In the alliterative Mort Arthur, Sir Priamus loses an arm in battle, but the severed limb keeps gripping its sword and swinging until another knight finally stops it.